We are live and we are recording on our January Ask a Bookkeeper First Friday Facebook Live. Happy New Year, everyone. We are super, super excited to have a very special guest this month, Thom Singer. I had the good fortune of seeing Thom speak at the National Tour Association's Travel Exchange Conference in November. And he did a fantastic talk on the top 10 things to move from potential to results. And I was blown away by the things that he was sharing. I really wanted him to come and share these ideas with the Ask a Bookkeeper audience and with our very own Penny. So thanks so much for joining us today, Thom.
Well, Ingrid, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. This is the first time I've ever been interviewed by a puppet.
Yay! Yeah, it's often a first experience for many people.
That's awesome. And the National Tour Association was such a great conference. It was my 5th year that I got to speak at their event. And I'm glad that the Paradox of Potential breakout session, I'm glad that resonated with you and brought me here.
Absolutely. It was fantastic.
So were you the one that was leading the Paradox of Potential breakout session?
Yes, that's my one of the things that I do. I'm a professional speaker and I speak inside companies and at associations. And one of my talks, probably my most popular talk of late, is called The Paradox of Potential. And it's all about the gap that we all face between what we think our potential is, like, oh my gosh, we're so excited, we have so much potential, but then we don't necessarily achieve those results. And why not? Why does the gap exist between those two things?
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. I think that's mostly what we're talking about today then, yeah?
That's what you told me.
Woo!
Moving from potential to results. I am stoked about this. I think this is going to be really, really great. So Thom, before we dive in, tell our audience really briefly just a little bit more about yourself and maybe where they can find you to learn more about you.
So I'm really fortunate. For the last 10 years, April 1st, 2009, I was laid off from my corporate marketing job. And I called my wife and said, I just got laid off. April 2009 was the bottom of what we now call the Great Recession. And I decided I was going to go pursue my own thing. I was going to become a professional speaker and corporate trainer. And 10 years later now, that's what I've been doing for that whole time. So I feel very fortunate. I get to do what I enjoy. I speak about 60 or 70 times a year for different size groups. I go in and do training for sales teams, or I can speak at things like Travel Exchange, where I met you, that has like 3,000 people in attendance or 2,000 people. And every week is different. I get to travel. I get to meet really cool people. But my role is I go in and provide information that is a combination of content that's going to help people actually take better action and make it entertaining and fun, because conferences can suck. And so I always tell people when they bring me in to talk, their conference will suck less if I'm one of the people on their agenda.
That was my experience at Travel Exchange. You were definitely a highlight. I mean, the conference overall was fun anyway. And you were like the cherry on top of the sundae.
Well, I try to be the cheerleader. I call myself the conference catalyst because I'm going to change that event just a little bit, get people to engage a little more, have a little bit more fun. And if anybody has any type of event and they're like, yeah, our speakers usually are just highly mediocre, they can find me at thomsinger.com. That's THOMSINGER.com.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I noticed we do have a couple of attendees who are joining us here on Zoom, and then others who are watching us live on Facebook. If anybody would like to join the conversation on Zoom, go ahead and click the Zoom link to join that conversation on Zoom, and then chat us if you'd like to be made a participant so that you can toss questions to Thom and Penny at the end of the call, because we would love to have your questions in here. Penny, I think your sound might have just gone out. No, we can't hear you.
Oh, there's no Penny.
Uh-oh. Well, Penny's getting her sound. Well, Penny's getting her sound sorted. Thom, do you want to go ahead and give us the laundry list quick to start us out? What are the top 10 things to move from potential to results?
So a couple years ago, I got fascinated with this whole thing of potential and results not necessarily lining up. And I'll be really honest, I noticed it in my own career. I had been growing my own business for several years, but I'd kind of gotten stuck. I call it being stuck in the high middle. I was doing very well. People on the outside would always say, oh, you're doing great. But I knew I could do more, and I wasn't seeing the solutions. I wasn't able to get things done. And so I started interviewing other people, both other speakers and trainers, but also people who were accountants and lawyers and basically every career out there. And I ended up doing a survey of now over 500 people. And I asked them, how do you feel about where you stand from where you believe your potential is and the results you're getting? And most people admitted there was a gap. And then I went and asked the people who said, no, I'm kicking butt, I'm achieving. I ask them, what are you doing that other people aren't? I also host a podcast called Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do, where I interview, I think now 400 entrepreneurs about their success. And one of the questions I ask them is, how do people get across that gap from potential to results? So I've had hundreds of people sort of give me a framework of what it is. And there's sort of 10 things that have bubbled to the top, and I'll sort of breeze through those. And then you can ask about which ones sort of would resonate for your audience. But number one is you have to take ownership of your own life. Too often people are always sort of pointing fingers and blame and trying to make themselves look like it happened to them. And the people who are succeeding are saying, you got to own where you screw up. You just got to be honest about it and take ownership of your life. Number two is you have to set clear goals. Now, I'm excited about this because I'm a pretty avid goal setter, but success doesn't happen by accident. You have to know what you're trying to achieve, or you won't necessarily know what it looks like. Number three on the list, the number one thing that actually holds people back, they say, is fear. And so one of the answers is you have to find a way to work past that fear. Fear is a real emotion that we have, but people have to move forward through it. Number four is all about networking. You have to connect with people because all opportunities in your life are going to come from other people. So that human connection, even in a world where we're tied up with likes, links, shares, and follows in a digital concept, really connecting matters. Number five, I call it be aggressive with gratitude. If someone does a favor for you, they help you achieve something, don't just text them THX, but actually go out of your way to let them know that you realize what they did was instrumental in your success.
Love that.
Number six is deliver on all projects, which basically means all of this advice you can get from me or anyone else is awesome, but you have to do good work if you're going to succeed. You can't just think that your networking is going to help you. You have to actually deliver on your projects. Number seven, accept that change happens because the world is changing. It's changing in everything. Regulations are changing. Competition is changing. Technology is changing. The old who moved your cheese is going to get moved. Just be honest that your cheese is going to move and don't freak out when that happens. Number eight is ask for help. None of us are an island, and yet we grew up in a sort of a John Wayne mentality that you have to be that Lone Ranger out there on the plains by yourself. Well, even the Lone Ranger wasn't by himself. He had Tonto and a whole series of angry townspeople who helped him solve problems. So embrace your angry townspeople and get them to help you. Number nine is try new things. I talk to so many entrepreneurs who tell me that if they kept doing the same thing they did when they started their business and weren't willing to pivot, they never would have achieved. And yet so many of us have a little bit of success and we dig in saying, oh, now we have to systematize it and do it this way every day. I'm a real believer that if you really want to accomplish greatness, you have to get out in your personal life and your career and push that envelope a little bit. And then number 10, you'd think this is basic, but in my interviews with people, I see it a lot that this is one people struggle with, and that is believe in yourself. Because the truth is no one's going to get behind you and follow you if you don't believe you're capable of achieving and getting across that gap. So if you believe you can do more, everything's going to fall into place. But if you think, oh, I'm not sure, I don't have the right degree, I don't have the right experience, oh, I'm this or that, then you're never going to get there. Wow. So those are the 10 tips that come up constantly from everybody I interview.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That is amazing. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Penny. Thanks.
Excellent. Okay. Well, so the one that really seemed most impassioned there was number 9, the try new things. And I'm interested in that one, particularly not just like, everyone likes trying new things. Well, not everyone, but, I like trying new things anyway. And, but I find that when I try new things, I'm often not able to do the old things that were working well. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you don't have to necessarily throw out the old things, but you need to be open to being able to tweak. And sometimes when you try new things, they're not going to work out. So you also have to be willing to try them and say, okay, that was an attempt at something that didn't work. But I used to be a marketing director for a company, and I was talking in an executive meeting about how our marketing was non-existent. And I had a bunch of ideas, and they were like, well, which one's going to be the best one? And I didn't know. And I said, sometimes you have to throw a little bit of spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. And the owner of the company slammed her hand on the table and said, no spaghetti hits the floor in my company. And I knew right away we were never going to be able to achieve anything amazing with marketing if everything had to be proven and safe that we did. So sometimes you have to go out and try stuff. And if it doesn't work, you say, okay, now don't spend $100,000 on something crazy, but go out and take little baby steps and try things. So when you said it was the one I was most impassioned about, this has changed my personal life and my career the last 2 years. When I turned 50, I realized that I had played it safe for 30 years. I had done what society wanted me to do, what my parents wanted me to do, what friends and family expected from me. I had put, career and family sort of ahead of anything like that I wanted to do. Oh, that I can't spend money on that because I have to raise kids, or, I can't take the time away from that for this reason. And I'm not saying I became, kind of a selfish jerk, but I decided when I turned 50 that I was going to make age 50 to 75 the best years of my life, which meant I was going to start looking for ways to say yes to things in my personal life and in my career. And so just a couple of examples. One of the first things I did was I was in Las Vegas giving a speech at a big conference, and I had like 6 hours to kill. And somebody who was in the audience said, "Why don't you go do the sky jump?" And I said, "What's the sky jump?" And they said, "It's at the Stratosphere Hotel. They have this Space Needle that's like 110 stories tall. And on the 108th story, they had punched out a door and a platform. And they hook you up in a harness, and you basically free fall, although you are connected. And it's not a bungee. You get to the bottom, and it's a tension thing. You just land like, boom, because the tension of the A-frame is there."
It's like the superhero landing.
Yeah, it's exactly what it's like. And I'm scared of heights. And I said, no way. There's no way that I'm doing that. And I had mentioned something, it wasn't actually the words "try new things," but it was the beginning of sort of this philosophy through these interviews I was doing. And so basically the guy said to me, "Aren't you the guy in your speech who said try new things?" And I was like, damn, dude, God. I hate it when the audience throws your own education back at you. So I didn't know if I had to have an appointment or whatever. So I had time till I had to get my flight. So I got in an Uber, and I told myself that if they could fit me in before I had to go to the airport, divine intervention, I was supposed to do it. If I couldn't, that was God's way of saying, don't jump off a perfectly good building.
Right.
And I went, and they told me, "Oh, we're sold out for the day." And I went, oh. And then they said, "But wait, I think there's one seat in this group that's going now." And they're like, "Billy, can you hold the door?" And I'm like, "No, Billy, close the door." And they took my $150. I went in with Billy. They trained me how to do it. And a half hour later, I jumped off 108 stories. And free fell part of the way, 19 seconds down to the ground. And I'm scared to death of heights. So when they said 1, 2, 3, go, I didn't. I literally look over my shoulder. There's a video, and I'm like, say it again. And then I did it. But as you watch, as I go down, I started enjoying it. So 2 years later, I'm there with my family, and my oldest daughter was like, "I'm not doing that." But her fiance was like, "I'll do it with you." And so my youngest daughter, my daughter's fiance, and I all leapt off the 108-story building, and it was still scary, but having done it once, it was so much easier. So that was the first try new things. Since then, I've gone ziplining. I've tried new things in my business. I started doing stand-up comedy at 51 years old, which has changed my ability as a speaker and as a master of ceremonies, because even though I'm not doing stand-up in those when I work, I am more free to be playful and interactive with an audience that I've never done before. And so when you push yourself into areas, and I'll tell you, stand-up comedy is the scariest thing I've ever done. When you push yourself into things like that, it opens up doors. I call it cross-training for my career when I do these things, because it opens up doors that just make me better at what I'm there doing every day.
Absolutely right. Love that.
So, and it sounds like really when you say try new things, on this list, it's not just try new things in your business. It's try new things in your life. Make yourself a better person. Try
new things in your life, in your business, in the way you relate to people, and in how you deal with our digital versus human to human world. But I've done things directly in my business. Like I was struggling with some areas in sales, and I'm a sales guy. But it's hard to sell yourself. And so I actually decided I would try a hand at hiring somebody. Well, he's transforming part of my business. For years, I was like, oh, I can't afford it. I'll never find the right person. So I'm looking for ways to say yes to try things. If he doesn't work out, it wasn't a huge investment. But if he does work out, I make more money. So I have to push that envelope with different things that I'm doing, or nothing is going to occur. So that's really where I'm teaching people on this number 9 on the list is, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results. If you want different results, you absolutely have to try new things. And I printed up shirts that say, try new things, period. And I wear it and people were like, oh my God, I have to get that shirt. So now I sell these shirts because it's a message that inspires people. Because I think most of us are very easily stuck in a rut. And we have to stop being in that rut.
Absolutely. Well, and isn't that one of the definitions of insanity? Doing the same thing every day and expecting different results?
That's what they say.
Yeah. So try new things.
Fantastic.
You'll certainly get different results if you try new things. Maybe they'll be good, maybe they'll be bad, but they'll certainly be different.
Well, my wife, we have in Austin, Texas, we have a surf park. It's like a giant pool. It's like a giant man-made lake, and they have like a thing in it that creates waves, and you can actually learn to go surfing. And my wife really wanted to do it, and we went, and I hated it, and I crashed into somebody, and I hurt my shoulder, and I'm not going to do it again. But I'm really glad I went because I'd heard about it for 2 years, and now I can say, oh yeah, I did the surf park. But the truth is that it's not like I want to become a surfer. So, but I tried it. And so sometimes in your personal life, in an adventure, you're going to try something and you're going to be like, God, that sucked. But you're stronger for it. And here's what I believe. At a company level, when a person tries something new, it makes them stronger and more resilient, win or lose, for future things that they're going to have to do in their job. When the team, as a team inside a company, tries new things, they're going to be able to figure out quickly how to work together and achieve more. When the whole company does new things, I think it can change an industry. And when you change an industry, I argue that you can change the world. But it all starts down with the individual being willing to take a risk and to try something.
Absolutely right. And that's a big part of what we've been doing in the tours and activities industry. When we were talking at Travel Exchange and where we met you, one of the main things, and I would love to get your take on this, Thom, one of the main things that I recognized when I was networking with the participants at Travel Exchange is that a large percentage of the Travel Exchange membership that was present at the conference are tour operators, a lot of bus tour operators who have been doing this for a long time, many decades, 30 plus years, who are working primarily with seniors. And they have a bit of resistance to change going on. So if you think about those companies working with seniors, the seniors they've been serving for the last 30 years are getting to the point where they're not going to be able to travel much longer.
Yeah, it's the circle of life.
Yep, exactly right. And their websites maybe aren't the most updated. Their processes are not the most updated. They're doing the same thing that they've been doing for many years. When the Gen Xers who are starting to think about retiring, they're not as focused on the way things have been. They're booking online. They're trying to find new experiences. There's different ways that the different generations want to be appealed to. And I was speaking with one company in particular that they send out their paper catalog of excursions to their list of clients each year. And if a new potential client calls them, they get their address and they send them their catalog. And I said, you don't even have it available as like a PDF to email them if they want to see it digitally? Because if that were me, by the time your paper catalog got to me in the mail, I would have booked my trip a week earlier.
Right. Well,
and it would have been a lost opportunity because you couldn't get me the information about your trips when I was interested in looking, and that was the time I had for it.
Well, it was moving fast these days.
Well, what I tell people in all industries is the old way is you can still mail that. I actually believe there is a place for physical stuff. And I think that, we're wrong when we think that the millennials don't like a brochure. I think some people get a brochure and they're like, wow, this is cool. How did they print pictures on paper? It's not on a computer. No, but I think that they like it, but it's not an either or. You don't have to give up the old way, but you have to be willing to try these new things. And at Travel Exchange, what I loved was how people were doing just that. They were still working with that demographic, but they were branching out to get to the younger generations and the younger demographic. And they were trying to get people to take selfies while they were on the trip, because that's what, and using certain hashtags and sharing with their friends and their family, because that's how you're going to get new people to come, is when you see that grandma did this, when grandma went ziplining, all of a sudden I'm like, whoa. It's like my future son-in-law. I think when he saw I jumped off the 108 stories, I think he was like, well, I can't say no, because, that's I got to do this. And I think he was nervous, but he had fun. And that was, I paid for him to do it. That was my Christmas present to him. And I'm worried that he told his parents that his future mother and father-in-law threw him off a building for Christmas. But
it's a good story.
But I think the fact that the old guy had done it, my younger daughter who did it, and then my niece's boyfriend who did it with us also, I think because I had done it before and I was doing it again, I think they were like, well, the old guy can do it, we can do it. So combining what they're doing with the older generation and marrying that with all these new digital tools, I think that's where the win-win comes in. They don't have to let go of the old way or let go of those people who might have another decade of traveling. But in order to appeal, it's marrying sort of the digital world with the physical world.
Absolutely right. When speaking of old guy, there's a comment that we got on the Facebook feed that you're going to love. Tina Barlow from Manitoba, Canada says hello. And she said, he's 50 question mark exclamation point.
I was thinking the same thing.
I'll be 53 in a couple months.
Congratulations. So yeah, audience apparently thinks that you're looking good, Thom.
It comes from all that clean living and jumping off buildings.
So what are some things so Penny has her pie shop, Penny's Pies. What are some things that Penny could try in 2019 in her business to start her year on the right foot?
Well, I think, I don't know your business, so I don't know that I can give a specific example. But I think going back to this list that I sort of read through, I think anyone, and we'll say you, Penny, but we'll use you as the example. Anyone can do this. We could pick any one of the other things on the list. I think trying new things is a great one because it can be a metamorphosis in your business. Because if you try something and it hits, that can change everything right away. It's like when I wrote The Paradox of Potential as a keynote, I had business that I was already doing, but it resonated so much, it became 50% of my business last year. So by trying the new keynote, I, grew my business. But I think if I'm just going to look at the list and pick another one, number 4 is connect with people. I mean, Penny, I think even though you're a puppet, I think that, we live in a world where there shouldn't be discrimination against people made of felt. And I think that if you actually find ways, and you're doing this now with, this type of a thing with the Facebook Live and the conference, but if you make a point to physically get out in front of people, I've proclaimed 2019 the year of back to basics when it comes to human engagement. So whatever it is, if your business is focused in any way locally where you live, like I know you have a lot of bookkeepers and people like that, if you have anything that's local, I think you need to get out to those local networking events. You need to get out to something that's happening on meetup.com. You need to get back to the Chamber of Commerce or, the Young Professionals Group or whoever it is, the Rotary Club, whatever it is in your area. And you need to physically show up because I believe that all this digital stuff is great. I mean, we're able to connect this way, which 10, 15 years ago, we couldn't have done this. You would have seen me speak at the conference and maybe never thought of me again. But you saw me speak at the conference and you have a platform where you get to reach other people and you invited me on. Awesomeness that we have Facebook and Facebook Live and all of these tools. However, people still do business with people they know, they like, and they trust.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the problem is a like, a link, a share, and a follow is not really a friendship. We have a lot of things that people get excited about. Oh, I have so many followers. But if your car breaks down, who's going to pick you up? We have to get back to who do I know locally? And we build relationships through shared experiences. So the people who are going to succeed, and I speak a lot to young professionals groups now, companies and associations will bring me in to speak to their millennial employees. And people think, oh, we're bringing the old guy in. They're not going to like this guy. And I'll come in and I'll talk about how do we get back, fortunately, I guess I don't look 50, but how do we get back to basics of connecting? And those audiences of people who are 30 to 40 years old get so excited because what they're seeing in practice is the people who are getting the promotions, the people who are getting ahead in their industries and the companies they work in are the people who are spending time, the people who are golfing with clients, the people who are on the board of their association. They're seeing opportunities come to those people. So one of the things I teach when I go into a company is we whiteboard. If it was 1960 and you had to market this company, what tools would you have? What would you do to market this law firm or this accounting firm? What would you do to market this engineering firm? And we'll whiteboard for, 10 minutes on different things you would have done in 1960 or 1970 to get the word out. And things come up like word of mouth. We'd have to host the client Christmas party that we used to do. We'd have to take clients golfing. I mean, I fill a whiteboard with things you can do. Now, the first thing I do is I take the Sharpie and I cross off yellow pages because that one probably isn't relevant. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 other things where it's like, yeah, that doesn't fly. But the rest of the board still works. And so my answer is use Facebook, use LinkedIn, use Twitter, make videos, do all of that. But don't forget everything we just wrote down on this board. Get back to basics. So that would be what I would do in 2019.
Well, and I heard it said, you were talking about connecting with people. I heard it said that if you have the choice between investing in people or anything else, always choose people.
Venture capitalists. I mean, I've interviewed venture capitalists, and they tell me that they will invest in an entrepreneur who has lost them millions of dollars because they trust and like him and know that he's got the right abilities, versus someone they haven't known who just comes with a great business plan that on paper looks fantastic. Yeah. They'd rather invest in an entrepreneur who is proven to be out there doing stuff. And I think we're hiring people. You know, I know people who've hired people when they move jobs, they always bring the same team with them because they know what they're going to get.
Yeah. Invest in the spaghetti makers. You were talking about, oh, we don't have spaghetti on the floor. We're swimming in spaghetti here.
I want to buy a beer for whoever came up with the idea of let's have the puppet do our Facebook Lives. I think it's brilliant.
Well, actually, that gets back to something I was going to say. You were saying that we all need to connect, even if we're made of felt, and some people may be put off by talking with a puppet, but we've actually found it to be the contrary. With a puppet, people are able to open up in ways that they don't with a normal person.
I think you're onto something there, and I think here's the thing. If you try, I forget where this comes from. It might have been like the Karate Kid or something, but some great philosopher like Mr. Miyagi. If you walk down the right side of the street, you're okay. If you walk down the left side of the street, you're okay. If you walk down the middle, you're going to get hit and bam, splat, you're dead. And so the problem is that some people would be like, oh, we can't be silly and use a puppet, because then some people will roll their eyes at us and think that's not professional. That's silly. That's goofball.
We don't want to hang out with those people.
Those weren't your clients anyway, right? Exactly. I find that as a speaker, sometimes people say, well, you're not what we're looking for because of X, Y, Z. Well, great. Don't hire me then, because I have to be able to I have to be the right choice for an audience. And when I am the right choice for the audience, pow, we have a great shared experience. But if somebody's trying to cram me in as a square peg into a round hole, that's not going to work. So by doing what you're doing, you're appealing to people who have that, I don't know if it's a silly streak or whatever it is, but you're appealing to people who are willing to say, okay, I'll play with you.
Yes.
And the clients I work with and National Tour Association, I don't know if you went to the opening session where we had a 2-hour roundtable discussion. I was asked to facilitate that, and I've worked with them for years, and they called me and said, we're looking for a facilitator. We want to try something very new. We're going to do away with the opening keynote for the general session, and we want to tap into the brilliance of our members and our suppliers who will be in the room. So we want to have this. We don't want it just to be tables where people talk. We need a facilitator. And they said, Thom, will you play with us? I loved the words. They said, will you play with us to create this? And we spent 6 or 8 months creating my talents and my background to what they wanted to do and mirrored it together. And it worked. It might not have worked. We actually told the audience, this is an experiment.
Yeah.
Usually you have a best-selling author come in and speak for an hour. We're going to take 2 hours because the knowledge isn't me, it's you.
Yes.
And it worked. And I think that thing of if you can get people who are willing to say, yes, I will play with you, penny made of felt, all of a sudden that's going to be a better business relationship than you're going to have with somebody who's like, well, I don't know if my banker would appreciate this.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Thom made of sinew.
Well, thanks so much, Thom. We are at time. It is 11 o'clock already. Boy, this flies by. Before we close off, I want to read a couple more fantastic comments we got. Tina commented again on Facebook, I'll be 49 this year. 1 more year before I start jumping off buildings, LOL. I totally agree with you.
75.
Grateful.
Make 50 to 75 the best years of your life, Tina.
Yes. Yeah. And she says, I totally agree with your be aggressively grateful. I do that, even sending an email a week later to say, I just wanted to thank you again. You made my life easier. And yeah, it was also commenting on the networking, that she's willing to drive 3 hours one way to get to a meeting in Winnipeg just so she can learn a network. Those things are so important. So yeah, I think that we hit some really good topics today, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to post the list of the 10 things in the chat in the Facebook so that people can find that list without having to go and listen through and write them all down themselves. We'll just copy.
And I have a little PDF I'll send you. I'll email you this PDF.
Perfect. Yeah, if you want to post that attachment in the Ask a Bookkeeper group, I'm sure that people would absolutely love that.
That's where I'll put it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Thom. And this was so much fun. And I'm really, really glad that we got to connect. And I look forward to getting to see you again in person at a future National Tours Association conference.
I'll be at Contact.
And we will talk more soon. Everybody, Happy New Year and have a great January.
Bye, everyone.